Right now, the big domestic news is the debate over Donald Trump in the Republican primary. What will happen with Nikki Haley in New Hampshire? What will happen with Ron DeSantis? We don't know. Now, I certainly think the Democrats aren't too concerned about what happens with Joe Biden because Nikki Haley is their candidate. And it seems like Vivek Ramaswamy was right. The play the Democrats are making is to get Nikki Haley to win in the primaries in particularly blue areas, and then she can be the Republican nominee. And if it's Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden, you basically got uniparty v. uniparty, and it's back to the old establishment game. If Nikki Haley is elected, we will get World War III, in my opinion. Or, it's a little hyperbolic. We will be strongly moving in that direction. To be fair, however, based on the news we're getting this morning, it may already be the case. We have a major story from Bloomberg. Iran strikes militants in Pakistan as regional tensions soar. And Pakistan is saying that they have a right to retaliate. So now Iran has engaged in military strikes in Syria, Iraq, and Pakistan while supplying weapons to the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea, shutting down shipping for energy, threatening the European economy, and of course, the American economy. And by all means, you can talk about American foreign policy, who's at fault. But either way, for those of us that are not sitting here trying to get into debate over the actions of the United States and these foreign countries, just know war is on the horizon. It is escalating. It is getting serious. And this will dramatically affect your ability to live. And of course, we may not get to an election this year in the way we think. We have the story from Newsweek. Putin ally says World War III will definitely begin soon in the Middle East. I don't know that he's wrong. Shell apparently is shutting down shipping through the Red Sea, which means energy costs and shipping costs are going to skyrocket. The cost of goods coming into the Mediterranean, it's going to skyrocket because the Houthi rebels keep firing missiles at cargo ships and they're shutting it down. Why are they doing it? Because of Israel and Gaza. And for this, your prices will go up. And as we debate what's going to happen in our Republican primary and who's going to win, something else might happen. I don't know that something like this results in a Joe Biden presidency. In fact, this could actually lead to a Donald Trump landslide. Take that clip and run it a year from now. I don't know that it will, but I'm saying in the event that we actually are pushed into World War III, I do not see an argument being made for Joe Biden, nor Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley may come out and say, I warned all of you when I was on that debate stage that Vladimir Putin was going to start World War III. Well, Donald Trump is going to be the guy who says there was no war under my presidency. Vote for me, and we will put an end to it. The challenge then becomes, how do you, as the deep state, as the U.S. imperial mechanism, ensure that if Donald Trump wins, you get your war? Well, these vile and disgusting scumbags will likely start it before Trump can even assume office. Because then, while they wanted the war in Ukraine with Russia, this was all 2014 under Obama. Donald Trump gets elected and it all subsides. They were probably fuming, saying we just want to blow up more kids, but they weren't able to. And so, how do you ensure that you, as the deep state, the intelligence agencies, get to blow up as many children and American citizens as possible? Well, it's quite simple. Start the war and force Donald Trump to end it. Because I tell you this, if there is an attack on U.S. targets and Donald Trump is running, we know who Donald Trump is. He will say, I will not stand for this. The United States will retaliate and defend itself. Now, to be fair, when there was, I believe a drone got taken down by Iran. I can't remember. It's been a long time since this story. Donald Trump ordered a retaliatory strike and then canceled it at the last minute, saying it's not worth taking the lives of all these individuals over, the equipment that we lost or something like that. Perhaps if Iran does expand their conflict and the Red Sea gets just totally shut out, which is basically at right now, if a U.S. target is hit, and a U.S. cargo ship was already hit, Trump might say, as much as we want blood, retaliation, revenge, understand expanding this war will take its toll on you, the American citizen, taxpayer, and voter. And so the best thing we can do is negotiate peace. And perhaps Donald Trump is the best person to do that because that's what we got under his presidency. No new wars. That was not all perfect. There were drone strikes, a lot of them. Missile strikes in Syria. These were mistakes. But Trump, no new wars. A timeline for withdrawal from Afghanistan, which Joe Biden screwed up. And I think our best chance for peace will be Donald Trump, maybe a Ramaswamy vice president. But let me show you what this Putin ally has to say. World War III, of course, keeps bubbling up in the media. And we've been talking about this quite a bit. Understand this. Many people say, Tim, it is too hyperbolic. World War III. Oh, come on. I've had people come on Timcast IRL and they say, there's not going to be World War III. Nuclear bombs flying everywhere. I was like, whoa, who's talking about nuclear bombs flying anywhere? No. This is what people think. When I say World War III, I get these people who are like, you really think nukes are going to go flying? And it's just like, what? When did I say that? Go ahead and make your assumptions, man. World War III simply means there will be war all over the world involving allies and various factions. Doesn't mean people are going to fire ICBMs at each other, though that's a possibility. What we're seeing right now with the Middle East, with China, Venezuela, we've got war bubbling up in basically every region. Almost every region. I mean, to be fair, there's certain areas, South America near, Argentina, Chile. Hey, there's no big war down there, right? But we do have Venezuela and Guyana. We have Eastern Europe. Germany released leaked documents suggest they're preparing for war. Of course, they always say it like, oh, Russia's going to engage in World War III, so we better prepare. Yeah, you're preparing for war with Russia. And so is Sweden. They think it's going to escalate to that point. Russia, of course, will align with China. China will make its moves for Taiwan. And this is where we're at. And it may bubble up with conflict in Iran. Of course, the U.S. has wanted to invade Iran for a long time, and it probably has a lot to do with the Red Sea. Among other things, oil, energy, etc. Newsweek reports Margarita Simonyan, editor-in-chief of the Russian state-owned RT, predicted on Monday that World War III will definitely break out in the Middle East. In a series of posts to X, formerly Twitter, she said, Simonian, is that how you pronounce it? Simonian, who the U.S. Department deems a Kremlin propagandist, raised questions about when world powers, including the U.S., would spark a major conflict. And now the Third World War. Whether a world war will break out now or a little later depends on whether Washington believes that it will be useful to it now before the elections or vice versa. Judging by the choral silence of the American media, they're still thinking. I agree. I completely agree with this. Take a look at this document, for this news report from WION. Putin planning World War III? Leaked documents from German MOD reveal NATO's worst nightmare. Certainly, this conversation is bubbling up. But this morning, when I come in to talk about the news, what do I see? Donald Trump versus Ron DeSantis versus Nikki Haley and nothing else. I mean, the primary was a couple days ago. And fair point, there are arguments to be made about what we do in the next week. This is big news here. But the big news, in my opinion, from last night, Iran strikes militants in Pakistan as regional tensions soar. And I start thinking to myself, why is this not front page headline in the mouths of every single pundit? Why is this not the story? Do we have a map? This is nuts. The U.S. has been looking for its casus belli with Iran for a long time. And now we have Iran striking Pakistan. Not to mention almost striking a U.S. consulate in this past week. And of course, it's in the news. But I'm wondering why it's not the most talked about thing imaginable. And I think, maybe this Kremlin propagandist, as they say, is right. The deep state is not quite sure whether or not to launch retaliation and expand this into the American public just yet. And what I mean is, I'm not saying they have definitive absolute control over whether or not we will discuss a certain story or otherwise. I certainly think that they can push. The U.S. interests can absolutely make this a story a talking point by having Joe Biden come out and say it. The news reports will then all reflect what Biden is saying and talking about. They could. Why aren't they? Maybe they will later. But this was last night. Why hasn't Joe Biden come out and said Iran has made this? Because they don't know just yet how to play this. I think the risk we face right now is the move they will make in terms of foreign war, absolutely, is to force a war that Donald Trump must answer if he wins. The idea being, if we can't have it, no one can. And the deep state, of course, the intelligence agencies, the uniparty, whatever you want to call it, their attitude is going to be, if you really want to take over, we will cause you such tremendous crises and problems, you will regret it. Now, I'm not saying it's the U.S.'s fault for all the war that's happening. I'm saying the U.S. intelligence forces will hyper-focus on and escalate the conflict so that Trump is completely overwhelmed and can do only what they demand he does. Fall in line because war is at your doorstep. I don't know that Trump is that guy. And I don't know that Nikki Haley is going to be able to actually convince anyone to vote for her if war is actually escalating to this point. Bloomberg reports Iran conducted a missile strike on a militant group in Pakistan, sparking a diplomatic crisis between the neighboring countries at a time of rising regional tensions. Regional? Let's talk about global tensions. Pakistan said it's recalling an ambassador to Iran and barring Tehran's envoy from re-entering the country over the unprovoked and blatant breach of its sovereignty. The attack marks a sharp escalation of Iran's campaign against Jaish al-Adl, a separatist group based in Pakistan. Iran's Tasnim news agency said 2 bases belonging to the militants in Balochistan province were destroyed late on Tuesday with missiles and drones. Jaish is, Jaish, how do you pronounce it, a Sunni group that operates along predominantly Shiite Iran's porous border. Oh, I love this. Just real quick. I have a curse filter. We try to keep it family friendly. And Shiite has been censored by that's funny. Iran's porous border with nuclear-armed Pakistan. It's launched multiple attacks on Iranian security forces. Most recently, a December assault on a police station that killed 11 people. Iran and the U.S. both considered a terror group. The strike came as tensions rippled through the Middle East over the war between Israel and Iran-backed Hamas, which has been raging in Gaza for more than 100 days. We get it, and here we are. Red Sea crisis, a risk for EU economy, energy supply, and prices. The Wall Street Journal reports Shell suspends Red Sea shipments amid fears of more Houthi attacks. We'll have to see whether this becomes a longer-standing issue. CEO Wael Sawan told the Wall Street Journal in Davos. This is my question, because I don't know. If these shipments are suspended and the European economy takes a hit, the U.S. economy takes a hit, is that a play against Joe Biden or against Donald Trump? I honestly can only see this benefiting Donald Trump. Biden, as president, will be dealing with international conflict for which he will be blamed. Look at Afghanistan. Or is the play that wartime presidents tend not to lose? Yeah, you take a look at George W. Bush and his approval rating after 9/11 skyrockets, even though people hated the guy beforehand. It's nuts, isn't it? The idea is typically that when war breaks out, wartime presidents see tremendous support because people are scared to vote for someone else at a time of conflict when you need someone to see it through. But I don't know if that's going to play out this way. I mean, Joe Biden as president during a war terrifies me. If it was Donald Trump and war happened, okay, I get it. But I'm maybe that's just me. I'm not the kind of person to be like George W. Bush would remain president because there's a war going on. I'm like, nah. Although, in 2004, I wasn't in favor of anybody. I don't know what was going on. I was like, whatever. I remember watching these debates and just being like, yo, I literally don't care about these people. I don't know if there even is a play. Maybe the reality is just war is coming, and there's nothing we can do about it. China wants Taiwan. Iran is upset over Israel. The Houthis are striking trade routes. Europe won't stand for it. Russia does not want NATO expansion on its borders. Would Russia really attack Baltic states? Yeah, that's crazy. The fear is there's this region in Europe, Kaliningrad. It's an oblast of Russia, but it's surrounded by Poland and Lithuania, with Belarus, sort of. There's a corridor that they could open up. But basically, Poland and Lithuania and the Baltic Sea, giving Russia access to the Baltics. And in Europe, it's a very interesting piece of territory that most people don't even know exists. To be honest, most people don't even know where Ukraine is on a map, but, it is what it is. The fear there is that Russia will massively build up their military presence in this area, giving them the opportunity to strike Baltic states or Sweden, Finland. And if war does come to Finland, which I believe, I always want to make sure, because as much as I know my geography, I believe Finland borders Russia, and the Finnish border is currently closed. It does massively borders Russia. But if Russia wants to strike Finland through the Baltics, they can launch from Kaliningrad or from Moscow. Actually, let me just pull up the map here while I have it. So this is Kaliningrad right down here. You can see there is nothing there. It's Russia. And so the idea is they could load up military forces and naval forces, and then they could strike Finland from 2 different directions. Or even Sweden. Sweden apparently is also concerned about the threat of war with Russia. And we may be heading in that direction. I just don't know. I really don't. I mean, what is the deep state play here with World War III, and why is all this bubbling up? Perhaps the reality is it's much simpler than we think. Maybe it's not that they're trying to create war, but that they are failures of an administration who can't maintain international relations. A lot of people want to believe that Joe Biden is part of this big deep state cabal conspiracy and that there's someone pulling the puppet strings. It's Obama. I wonder if it's much simpler than that. They didn't want to go to prison, so they run against Trump. Trump can't win against deep state tactics and strategy, but they have no long-term plan. And now everything's falling apart because they're corrupt crackpots that were only just trying to steal as much as they could as the Titanic sank. Two views. Joe Biden is a puppet on strings. Obama or someone is calling the shots, and they want this conflict. Or the Titanic is sinking, and they decided they're going to run around and steal as much fine china as they can as they make their way to the lifeboats. Their lifeboat, of course, I guess would be mainland China, but I'm not sure. The BBC reports Red Sea attacks, Greek vessel hit by missile fired by Houthi rebels. This is all yesterday. All of this is bubbling up, and it's bubbling up rapidly, and it's only January 17th. I do not see how any of these countries sit back and allow the expansion of this conflict. So what comes next? Pakistan weighing its options? What happens if Pakistan launches airstrikes into Iran? Neither country is going to sit there and just accept it. Someone throws a rock at you, you throw a rock back, and that's it. Now you've got people launching rocks at each other. There was an opportunity for peace in Ukraine. And this happened, was it last year or a couple years ago? Boris Johnson flies in and says, no peace. So you have to wonder, what's the strategy here? Perhaps Western forces are so confident that they can bully the East that they can go in there and say, we'll go to war, we'll play a game of chicken with you, and we won't back down. I don't see Russia, Iran, China, Venezuela, the BRICS nations even. I don't see them just simply saying, okay. Now, interestingly, BRICS nations are not, let me pull up the list here. They're not unified in what this conflict is, right? So BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the Emirates, because they expanded. So if you've got India, Iran's fighting Pakistan, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be real interesting. It may be NATO versus BRICS. I'm not the biggest expert on what World War III will look like, but I've been saying this for years, that the U.S. economy being threatened by the expansion of the BRICS nations is the simplest explanation for why World War III will start. So what's your plan? What are you going to do? We have our third U.S. airstrikes in Yemen without declaration of war. Justification by people on the left and some on the right. And I wonder what will happen in this country electorally if this conflict escalates. It'll be really funny if there's no election. Roseanne Barr has the bet with Michael Malice that there won't be an election, and Michael bet her $1,000 there will be. Now, the assumption is inner turmoil will stop a U.S. election from happening. But what if the real reason there's no election is because World War III breaks out? And it's not a matter of politics, it's a matter of capability. Meaning, the war is so intense, the conflict is so severe, there's just no election because no one does. And there's no Biden presidency and no one knows what's going on. Man, I have no idea. Seems hard to believe, right? Putin ally claims World War III already underway. Huh. Well, hold on there a minute. Now we opened up with a World War III will begin soon. Believe it or not, a day before, you had Vladimir Solovyov name-check Donald Trump as he claimed World War III has started. Man, maybe I should have led with this one, but you get my point. He's the anchor of Russia One, and he was name-checked. I love that they say name-checked Donald Trump. What does that even mean? He's let's read. He says, once again, he returned to the theme, warning that Russia was being confronted with a formidable enemy. We are dealing with the collective West, so to speak, which means more than 50 countries. Some of them are not Western. The West is no longer a geographical term. Either way, they will get the economy going and move it onto a war footing. He said this meant that Russia had only a year and a half or 2 years to bring its economy up to a level when it will be able to stand up to these countries with their economic potential. Oh, man. We are moving towards World War III. In my opinion, it's already underway. By the way, Trump thinks so too. I agree. I'll say this. Our best bet at preventing World War III, it's plainly obvious. Donald Trump for president. The stakes have never been higher. Never been higher. We've not dealt with the prospect of an actual nuclear-armed and worse, biologically armed world war. Industrialized war with World War I and World War II, terrifying. World War II, the advent of nuclear weapons and the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah, the bombs we used, the United States in Japan, they got nothing on the weapons of today. The ICBMs that we do have, intercontinental ballistic missiles, they have 1,250 times the power of the bombs used in Japan. And those missiles, 50-year-old technology. I mean, we're talking the 70s they were building these things. The more terrifying things that we do know about, biological weapons, genetically targeted viruses. That's the future of war. The U.S. drops a bomb on a certain country. That country retaliates. Their allies get pulled in. Eventually, one country says, we have released a virus that specifically targets the genes of a particular race of people. And then what? The stakes have never been higher. I think our best path and our best plan will be Donald Trump. But maybe there won't even be an election. We'll see, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.